So keep an eye on how much smoke's gonna piss out of this thing. It's great. So as you can see, it's smoking pretty bad, and long story short, or I guess the short end of it, or whatever we're gonna end up saying, is the vehicle started on fire. How might you ask? Well, a certain individual decided he wanted to work on this, and he was playing mechanic, and can't say I'd ever let him touch any of my vehicles, even one of those play school vehicles. But he did. There was a massive oil leak, and of course it flash ignited and caught on fire. So it's gonna be pretty bad. I haven't really dug deep into it, but anytime fire is involved, I don't think it's ever good. We're gonna start ripping it apart, go from there. So this here is an E92 335. I believe it's a 2008, whatever, 07, 08, 09, it's all about the same. He ended up taking it to the wonderful individual that, again, doesn't know his head from his installed upgraded twin turbos. So this currently has, I believe it's 17 Ts. Now the issue is he ended up driving it for an hour. He drove it from the guy's place, or slew, wherever that loser lives, all the way home, and it started smoking. So he had noticed that there was a pool of oil right when he got to the driveway. And he noticed a bunch of smoke when he shut it off on his driveway. Of course, he went to inspect it like any normal human being would. Opened the hood, and sure enough, he saw fire near the rear turbo. So my assumption, and from what he's explained, is that it sounds like a really bad oil leak. So likely from the feed where it had sprayed up and on the turbos or the downpipes. Of course, oil will eventually ignite when it gets hot enough. So I'd imagine it decided to ignite and caused a fire. So fortunately, he was able to get the garden hose after not finding the extinguisher. He put it out, and now we're left with the mess. It's even small things like the guy selling him VRSF inlets when these are just eBay junk. So for those of you that may not know the difference, the new VRSF stuff, or at least the stuff that you get from VRSF, is reinforced silicone. So it has a steel coil to prevent them from collapsing. And these eBay ones don't have it. So they're not VRSF. He just fed them a line, and now I get to clean up the mess. The turbos that he ended up getting, of course, after 2 failed installs on Zach's car and the 135, they're gonna go on to this. So I believe we need to change the rear upper coolant feed line. So I'll just get one off the 135 here. And other than that, we have new inlets to put in that are steel reinforced. Hopefully that's gonna fix it. I really don't know. Again, anytime there's a fire involved on a vehicle, it's never a good sign. So I'm hoping that we're able to actually salvage it. I'm thinking we may be able to, but we're not gonna know until we actually dig into it. So first things first, we gotta rip it all off, assess the damage, and if anything, it might be extensive cleanup. In the best case scenario, worst case scenario, if the guy ended up wrecking one of the ports, or if he ended up jamming the feed line in and he ended up causing a score or something for it to leak that bad. It smells worse than just like a turbo oil burning smell. We'll get a better idea when we get those turbos ripped off.
So a good example of the workmanship that was done here is, here's the coil. Should be seated fully in there. It's not, it's just loose. Every single one. These, loose. Everything's loose. It's just like poor craftsmanship it's not hard to push a coil in. Every single one loose. This will cause a misfire. Coils or injectors, all the plugs just pull right out. They're all broken. It's just a lot of laziness. Actually, you can see where it was smoking.
Yeah, the char.
All the char in there.
Yeah, so I'll try and point. You'll see here, the collar and then the char from the smoke. So smoke will leave a bit of a residue. Actually, this isn't even tightened. This is obviously leaked all over the excess power blow-off valve. The clip for the charge pipe was loose. What else? AC line wasn't connected. You can see this is big floppy wiener intake. Low on coolant, smoke, residue. It's gonna be a mess, but whatever. We'll see if we can fix it.
Nice. So starting to just take the basics off, like the cowl, and kind of open up a little bit more room. We already noticed that the annoying bolt to get to down here to hold this in place, pure laziness. Why put it back? This, why put it back when there's, you know, a perfectly good home here? Bolts for the cowl? No, non-existent. Why even bother? Oh, wait a minute. Would this be why the turbo wasn't spooling? The rear solenoid is just hanging out open.
What?
Those go to the vacuum canisters. But you can look at that. That's been left open. Look how dirty it is.
Yeah, it has fire char in it.
Yeah.
This, Taylor just found, you can see there's a bunch of dirt on it, but you can see in the port there, there's a bunch of char. So this is being disconnected for some time now. So what it tries to do is it tries to equalize the pressure with this, right, where your finger is. So what that tries to do is it tries to equalize the pressure between the two converters. But that would be why he would have no boost. But hopefully it didn't just spike. And
So even if this is off, then this is plumbed incorrectly. Because it should match between the two. So it's not even plumbed correctly.
oh my God.
Right?
Right. You have the two pressure converters, and what Taylor noticed, I'm gonna double check on the 1 series, but you can see here with the T, this goes to the bottom port here. So keep in mind with this T, but the T for this rear one goes to the top of the rear converter. So if we're looking from the front of the vehicle to the back of the vehicle, like we were showing you there, here where the T's are, you can see where it's going to be in the middle port or the bottom port. So this will make it look easier. So the bottom port is what's meant to T both pressure converters together, and these typically go to the turbos or to the vacuum pods. Either way, when these are backwards, the converters aren't able to do the job equalizing the boost. So in turn, if it was making boost before, it could very well have been over boosting the entire time. Now, if it was over boosting, that could explain why the turbos had blown, oil leak aside. But in turn, when it's spiking and upgraded turbos are making whatever the hell it wants to make, you're relying on the DME's fail safes and the safeties to save your motor. So in some cases where you don't have this fancy electronics kind of thing, or fancy enough electronics, the car will overboost and it could detonate, and it can crack a ringland and it can damage a piston. Of course, this came off this motor, so it's also off an N54. And again, they usually just kind of bolt to the side here. But that's a good reference. Of course, I knew that it was wrong, but I wanted to double check. So yeah, the converters are plumbed wrong. So that's one surprise. Let's see what other surprises are gonna creep up on us as we continue.
So far we've taken boost canisters off, O2s off, started looking at taking stuff out here, and then I looked at the coils, realized there's weird branding on the side, took them out, realized spark plug holes are covered with water and oil. Water probably from when he soaked down the motor to put the fire out. I don't know if I can show you the O2, just completely toast. Everything we've touched so far has just been an issue. Like pulling a coil out, boot is stuck in there, so then you gotta take the pliers, pull the boot out, look at the spark plug's covered in water and oil. All through here, it's all soaked in oil, every single port. So, yeah. What's your thoughts on this too? Because I might just be overthinking that.
Let's see. That's not good.
Oil layered on top, no?
Maybe. There's not much you can see through here. But the thing that I have a concern with is it's empty.
Yeah, and it's blowing a lot of white smoke.
Yeah, and it looks like there's some oil film right on top. So sometimes what ends up happening is when the oil filter housing gasket goes bad, coolant can mix with oil and oil mixes with coolant and you get a situation like that. Because I noticed when I had opened this earlier that there was a lot of condensation. Sometimes a little bit of condensation is okay, but there smells like there's too much fuel either getting past the rings or something. One other thing I noticed is in the clips, when we started it, when I was moving it inside the garage, it kind of looked like the exhaust was pulsing a bit. So you'll notice where it kind of shoots smoke rings almost. It's not really a good sign. Sometimes that usually relates to compression issue, which could be a cracked ring, ring land. From my Subaru days, whenever you had something like that, it'd be a ring land. My biggest concern right now is that with the pressure converters being routed backwards, it's like a boost controller where it's not bleeding off any boost. It's just gonna run whatever boost it wants. So even if it ends up being for a second or two and it spikes to 30 PSI, very often can you end up cracking a ring land or damaging a ring. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but we can't check it further because all the boots are wedged inside the cylinder head that has water in it. And even if we fought to get all those out, the plugs are probably stuck because they've sat in water for 4 or 5 months now. Because ideally, if this was my car, I would do a compression test, make sure that's okay, focus on a lot of other maintenance items, like the factory valve cover with 200K on it, broken connectors here, like everything's saturated in water and oil. Like this doesn't even latch like it normally latches, but it's just kind of free ball in there. I don't know what other leaks it has underneath, but something like this, you can't just chuck eBay turbos at and ignore everything else. What I think I'm gonna have to do is call the guy that owns the vehicle, give him a bit of a rundown as to what we kind of found and see what he says. I have a feeling he's gonna want us to just chuck turbos in, but I really don't want to put my name to something that's not gonna end up working. Say we do the turbos and it still smokes, or say we do the turbos and there's a compression issue, or say we do the turbos and the inlets and there's some ulterior or underlining condition or issue that creeps up after it's all done. And I don't know, say he drives it a week and it blows up. I don't want to be blamed for that. All right, let's give him a call. Okay, bye. Well, long story short, the owner's upset, which nobody can doubt him or fault him for it. So we're gonna start with doing a compression test and hopefully that turns out okay. And if that's okay, then we can do the turbos. I'll double check with him each step of the way. We're gonna pull the coil packs. I'm gonna try and blow out the water from each cylinder and hopefully the plugs come out nice enough and we can do a compression test.
Whew, I'm getting hot flashes.
Oh, what the f? can feel the plug twisting. I never thought I would have to use chrome like a snipe. Oh, holy. Oh, man. That didn't feel right. That's not what that's supposed to feel like. So because I put WD-40 in there, what we're gonna do is hold it. Oh no, it got really tight. Yeah, you can see like there's just water throughout the entire thing. Yep. And oil.
The porcelain's cracked.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mmm. Yum. What we're gonna do now, all the coils are out, all the plugs are out. Before the plugs came out, I blew the spark plug holes out, but you saw, I'm sure, how much I fought with certain plugs. So I did have to spray some WD-40 into each hole so that I could use the snipe to crack them out. We ended up taking all the connectors off of the injectors so we don't accidentally hydrolock it, not that there's enough WD-40 in it. Taylor's going to crank it over. Whatever WD that had fallen into the cylinder is going to get pushed out. What I'm going to listen for initially is that the compression is even. You'll hear if it ends up having a little bit low compression on 1 or 2 cylinders where it'll start to sound a little quieter. So what we're expecting is all 6 as they rotate to sound identical. So it should sound smooth. If one doesn't sound smooth, then it's a good possibility that one has a little bit less compression or a lot less. Yeah, maybe plug in the rad fan so it doesn't go nuts.
Yeah, the water pump won't turn off.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Stop. Sounded like nothing. Do it again. Sounds even-ish, so now we're gonna do a compression test. The way you do compression tests is you get yourself your choice of compression testers. Now, this one is good, and I've used it before. Now, some may read a little bit higher than others, but what you're looking for is just evenness throughout the cylinder. Of course, I have the BMW adapter on this one, and you thread it to the bottom, and it's nothing super crazy. What I like to do is pull each plug out. Now, some places will say a little bit different where you don't need to do that or whatever. When you're ready.
Okay, going.
Okay. Okay. 175. Good start.
Very good start.
That was more cranks than most people would do. Usually 5 or 6 will suffice. And again, peak number isn't as important as evenness throughout the cylinders. Ready?
Yep.
Oh, hold on. It'd be good if I just bled it off. Okay. Okay. 155. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay. 170.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. 180. Okay. 170. Moment of truth, I guess. Okay. 170. Okay, so we'll put a list of the compression numbers up top, and maybe I'll do a deviation thing. and give you a bit of a visual. As you can see, the vehicle's back together. Now, what does that mean? It could be one of two things. We finished it, or I spoke to the client and he didn't want to proceed. Client, buddy, I mean, same difference. The issue we run into now is the compression. So like you had seen the numbers, it's not really low. It's not like it's 80 or 120, which is a rather big problem, but it's still outside of spec. And generally they say service limit or to be of concern is about 10%. Ideal is no more than 5% variance. And of course, people can argue and fist fight and e-chat, whatever, argue bully. It's down to a matter of opinion. This one here, he's not comfortable proceeding. I did explain to him it needs a lot. If it was my car, it's nowhere near needing turbos or at the point of where you're going to be upgrading. There's a lot of maintenance that needs to be done. And again, we're not at the point of going to push for power. If you install twins, you could have other issues. For all we know, if the turbo had spiked boost or if it had a problem, it could have damaged a ring potentially or the piston on cylinder 2. Or it could just be a worn engine. But if you see, the compression's a little bit lower in between two healthy cylinders, which is indicative of a cylinder having some sort of a problem or potentially a problem. So he did mention that it's a car from BC, so it is rather clean, and we're gonna close this dumpster fire, literally actually dumpster fire, and not stare at it. Otherwise, the car's in really good shape. Again, he wouldn't be doing justice with just chucking turbos at it and putting a what's the name of it, a Band-Aid. That's the wrong approach for something like this. Of course, my recommendation for him is what I would end up doing to one of my vehicles is do it properly or don't do it at all. He agrees, which is good. So we have some plan in the works for this vehicle. You will see it again. Of course, this is number 3 for failed twin turbo installs. The same turbos that were intended for the 1 Series, for Zach's E90 335 when we had flipped the coin, and ironically, he ended up getting a single turbo. And this was the 3rd one. So those turbos are cursed. We're just gonna sell them off to someone else and they can have them installed, and they're not going on this car. At least not right now. We haven't decided, so stay tuned and this will be, yeah, it'll return. A lot of shops would have just installed the turbos. They wouldn't have given a damn about the customer or client. They would have just got the job done, and if the customer left and ended up having problems down the road, they wouldn't give a damn. And for myself, this is not something I would have put my name on. At some point, people will realize it's not about small monetary gain, and I'm not willing to take any amount of funds or, again, monetary value to risk my reputation or my name. And maybe at some point, some of you will understand, and I'm not naming names, but there are a few people in town who think they're BMW professionals that just take dime from a customer, run them through the ringer, and they're left with a disaster. I'm not gonna do that. I don't do this for the money. I do this for the education. I want people to be better educated on how these vehicles work and why certain things shouldn't be done ahead of others, why maintenance is key. The last thing I need is to throw turbos on a car for him to have issues down the road and I potentially get the finger pointed at me, or somebody ends up hearing that, well, his car's having issues and I had touched it last. I'm not gonna do that. My reputation and name are worth way more than any amount of work that I would do for somebody. Of course, I'm a hobbyist, I'm a YouTuber. I do this for fun in my downtime. I still have a regular 9 to 5. So for this, it's not my bread and butter, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna risk my reputation simply because somebody wants their car done. It's as simple as that. Feel free to like and subscribe, hit that dingle jingle notification, and I'm out. Emma, say goodbye. Emma, say bye. Hola amigos. No hablo inglés. Oh, okay.
Adios.
Adios muchachos. Adios muchachos. We out. Yeah, this is what happens when I need to pay carbon tax. I'm just letting the Mother Nature know that I don't agree with it. Yeah.
I'm not excited, and I'm not gonna hide it.
Oh.
Say my name, when no one is around you. Say, baby, I love you.
What do you think? What do you think? I know, it's a little bit piece of shit, but we'll fix it. We'll make it better. I know.